Good morning. This is Haley Solomon with the North Carolina Housing Coalition. Thank you for joining us this morning for our housing call. And without further ado, I will turn it over to our Executive Director, Samuel Gunter.
Good morning, everyone, and happy Valentine's Eve for all of those who celebrate. This is your reminder, if you have not yet gotten the appropriate things for your significant other, this is your reminder. Go do it. Build it into your day. All right, we're going to jump right in. There is a lot happening, and I'm going to be referring you to our call notes because it's way too much to go through all in this 15 minutes. But let's jump right in. First up, we want to remind you that this Friday we have the third in our learning collaboratives. This is part of a series on housing challenges for folks with substance use disorders, folks coming out of incarceration settings. This Friday, we're going to be talking with some folks over at Disability Rights of North Carolina, talking about housing barriers for justice-involved populations and those at risk of overdose in particular. That's Friday from 10 to 11:30. You can find the link to sign up in the call notes, as well as the links to the recordings from our first two learning collaboratives on that front there as well. Also, save the date. Our Bringing It Home conference. This is the conference we host in the spring in partnership with the Coalition to End Homelessness and the NCDHHS's ESG office. It is going to be June 4th and 5th, and for the first time since 2019, it will be in person again. So we're excited to see everyone back at the McKimmon Center here in Raleigh. Registration is going to open in March. So for updates, you can check out the conference page we have set up, or you can contact Haley Solomon with any of your questions. We are really looking forward to the conferences here and being back in person. All right, let's jump into some of these policy updates. Starting at the federal level, as March 1st approaches, which is the deadline for this next round of is the government going to shut down or not, negotiations are continuing over the final fiscal year 2024 spending bills, including THUD. That's the one that funds HUD's vital affordable housing, homelessness programs, and so on. Appropriators have to reconcile the differences between these budgets. And as a quick reminder, the difference is a 10% increase in the House and a 13% increase to HUD's budget on the Senate, from the Senate side. But again, as a reminder, neither of those increases are sufficient to fund the existing pool of vouchers due to rent increases. So all of this, even though it's an increase, means a cut. So as we are again approaching that March 1st deadline for funding the government, as always, remind your elected officials, we need a budget. We can't keep pushing this down the road. Also on the tax front, so the House recently passed the Tax Relief for American Families and Workers Act 2024 back on January 31st, and we're waiting for the Senate to take action. As a reminder, among many other things that are in this tax package, the legislation also includes two key provisions from the Affordable Housing Credit Improvement Act that would expand housing tax credit production across the country. Again, this is a bill in various iterations that we have been working on ever since I have been at the coalition. And we have gotten broad buy-in, bipartisan buy-in from our entire delegation in North Carolina, including both of our senators. And because this bill is now over to the Senate, what is critical for us in this moment is to remind Senator Budd and Senator Tillis that these housing pieces are important, and this bill needs to get over the finish line. The ask at the moment is for our senators to be reaching out to leadership, and so for Tillis and for Budd to reach out to Leader McConnell to let him know that they're hearing it from their states that this is an important piece of legislation, that it needs to move and get voted on in the Senate. If you need any talking points, anything along those lines, the Action Campaign has a webpage. We'll link that in the call notes. Yeah. So a couple of other items on the national front. There's the CDBG disaster recovery bill that would permanently authorize the program. There's some information on how to support that and sending a letter to Patrick McHenry, who is the chairman and sits on House Financial Services Committee. Another little piece that we'll probably be talking more about in the coming weeks is that the White House announced a partnership with states to address homelessness. And this is supposed to be in partnership with HUD and the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services, and they have selected 8 states to participate in this new initiative known as the Housing and Services Partnership Accelerator to help strengthen partnerships across housing, disability, aging, health sectors, and so on, help them access federal resources and programs and to maximize those federal flexibilities. And North Carolina is one of those 8 states that are impacted. This effort is going to be led through DHHS, the Medicaid agency, and we'll also be talking a little bit about this on the Interagency Council on Coordinating Homelessness Programs, which is a body that I sit on here as a state and meets this week. So those are a couple of things coming from the national level. There's a couple of other items about the National Flood Insurance Program, and a couple of other things that you can see in our call notes. I'm going to move on to the state level. The North Carolina DOJ has reached a settlement with First National Bank of Pennsylvania. This is a $13.5 million settlement for redlining practices in Charlotte and Winston-Salem that took place between 2017 and 2021. You can read more about that settlement and where that investment is going to go, linked in the call notes. We also have news that Insurance Commissioner Mike Causey has rejected the large rate increase that was proposed by the Rate Bureau to increase homeowners insurance statewide by an average of 42%. Their office received more than 25,000 letters, emails, and phone calls opposing the increase. A hearing is set for October 7th, but from what we're hearing, Causey is likely to agree to a private settlement or delay the hearing entirely since it's scheduled just before the November election. So speaking of elections, it's a big election year, and as a reminder, here in North Carolina, early voting starts this Thursday, February 15th. This is the primary. So just a reminder out there, as we have candidates running all across the state at various levels, and if you are interacting with them, be pushing them and asking them about where they stand on housing issues. A couple of other state legislative updates. There was an HOA hearing on January 24th that the General Assembly held on homeowners associations about HB 542, which was introduced last fall and remains in the conference committee and would limit HOA's ability to foreclose on properties for small debts that are owed. The House Select Committee on Homeowners Associations is supposed to meet again today at 1 o'clock and finalize their recommendations. They are no longer accepting public comment. There's a couple of other GA meetings coming up this week and next. You can find more about that on the website. A couple of things from around the state and local communities. Last night, Charlotte City Council voted to recriminalize a number of things in public spaces, from sleeping on benches, among others. Some concern that this ordinances are going to be disproportionately used to target homelessness populations. There was a lot of talk about not wanting to become LA and San Francisco and so on. And it's a trend that we're actually seeing in a number of communities. We've had several conversations with a number of you about similar pushes in local governments around the state to criminalize being homeless. It's a big concern. I think it's a conversation we're going to be having over the course of this year as we're seeing somewhat of a targeted and seemingly coordinated effort. But we'll be revisiting that in the coming weeks. A couple of other items from around the state. Durham UDO Durham is embarking on a rewrite of its Unified Development Ordinance. This process is expected to take 18 months as they rethink land use policy here in Durham. We've got a couple of news items about cities across North Carolina selling publicly owned land to properties for affordable housing developers to further the creation of affordable home ownership opportunities in particular. Gastonia, Winston-Salem, there's also Raleigh as well. We'll talk more about that in just a second. Also, there was a documentary that was just released called United. Wake Forest graduate student recently released a short documentary on the Crystal Towers public housing in Winston-Salem. It's a 16-minute film that follows a grassroots-led tenant coalition called Crystal Towers United as they advocate to City Council for basic necessities like operational fire sprinkler systems, working elevators for residents with wheelchairs. This film is the first in the series that this filmmaker is planning to release on affordable housing. You can find more about it, again, linked in our call notes. Last week, Raleigh City Council approved a $700,000 gap funding grant for an affordable home ownership and rental community in Raleigh's Idlewild neighborhood. This is in partnership with NC Central's basketball coach, Lavelle Moten, his real estate development and construction firm, which is working with the Raleigh Area Land Trust to build 18 cottages, 14 to be sold at an affordable price for families earning between 50 and 80% of the area median income. And the remaining 4 will be affordable rentals for families earning between 30 and 80% of area median income. They've also requested some additional gap financing from Wake County. There's also some news about Cary mobile home tenants fearing displacement. And on March 14th, the town is going to vote on the Stable Homes Cary Initiative, which creates emergency funding for low-income residents that are displaced by development. And last week, Wilmington and Hanover County officials decided not to move forward with a proposed joint homelessness task force that was under consideration. Housing advocates say the county and the city were lacking comprehensive service delivery approach, and that a unified approach is needed to most efficiently address the issues that they are facing. There are a number of other items that I skipped over because we do not have enough time to go through all of them, but there are some reports and resources that you can also see on our website. Some from Joint Center for Housing Studies at Harvard called In Search of Rural, How Varying Definitions Shape Housing Research in particular. Housing Approaches to Extreme Weather can lessen harms to community health by the Urban Institute. There's a piece by HUD on increasing supply of affordable single-family homes, as well as a piece by the Journal of American Planning Association entitled Who Owns America? A Methodology for Identifying Landlords' Ownership Scale and the Implications for Targeted Code Enforcement, which is a really fascinating piece. And one final one by the Housing Assistance Council called The New and Evolving Rural America, which if you do housing work in rural communities here in North Carolina, that's definitely a piece worth taking a look at. One other final reminder event to put on your calendar. If you're down east, the Cape Fear Housing Coalition's annual breakfast will be in Wilmington March 11th, and I will be there. Talking along with the keynote address from Dr. Greg Colburn, who is the author of Homelessness is a Housing Problem. Again, check the call notes. There's a whole lot in there this week, much more than I could cover in this time. And also a reminder, it's Valentine's Eve. Make your plans accordingly. Have a great week, and we will see you next time.